There are places on our planet that hold stories of immense power and profound loss. They are not always found in the grand ruins of ancient cities or the vast empty deserts. Sometimes, the most haunting tales come from places that are no longer there, places that have been erased from our maps. Lohachara Island was one such place. It existed, nestled in the Sundarbans Delta of India, a home to thousands of people. Today, it is gone. It vanished beneath the waves, swallowed by the very sea that had sustained it for generations. This is not a myth or a legend from a forgotten time. It is a true, modern story of a land lost, a chilling mystery that serves as a stark warning for our world. Imagine a place teeming with life, a small islet where communities lived and worked. Lohachara was part of a cluster of islands in the Bay of Bengal, at the mouth of the mighty Hooghly River. It was a fragile land, forged from the rich silt carried down by the rivers from the Himalayas. For centuries, its people lived in harmony with the rhythm of the tides, their lives woven into the fabric of the mangrove forests and the shifting waterways. They knew the sea as both a provider and a powerful force, but they could never have prepared for the day when the sea would not retreat. They could not have imagined that their entire world would simply disappear from view, leaving nothing behind but water. The disappearance was not a sudden, cataclysmic event like a volcanic eruption. It was a slow, creeping invasion. Year after year, the tides grew higher, pushing further inland. The salt water poisoned the freshwater wells and ruined the rice paddies that families depended upon for their survival. The land itself began to dissolve, its edges crumbling away with each passing season. The people watched as their island shrank before their very eyes. What was once a walk of several minutes to the shore became a journey of mere steps. The sea was relentless, a silent, patient hunter claiming its prize piece by piece, until there was nothing left to claim. The mystery of Lohachara is not one of ancient curses or mythical sea monsters. It is a mystery born of our modern age. How can a piece of land, a home to over 10,000 people, simply cease to exist? The answer lies in the warming of our planet. As global temperatures rise, the great ice sheets at the poles begin to melt at an unprecedented rate, pouring unfathomable amounts of water into our oceans. At the same time, the seawater itself expands as it gets warmer. This dual assault causes sea levels to rise globally, and for low-lying coastal areas like Lohachara, this slow, silent rise is a death sentence. The island did not sink, the ocean rose up to consume it. The story of Lohachara is ultimately a human story. It is the story of families losing everything they have ever known. These were not wealthy people with the means to easily relocate. They were farmers and fishermen whose ancestors had lived on that very soil for generations. Their homes were simple structures, built from mud and thatch, designed to withstand the annual monsoons, but not a permanent flood. As the waters advanced, families were forced to make an impossible choice: to stay and risk everything, or to abandon the only home they had ever had. They became some of the world's first climate change refugees, a term that was barely understood when their island began its final tragic retreat into the sea. The process of abandonment was heartbreaking. People tried to hold on for as long as they could, building makeshift barriers and raising the floors of their homes. But the sea was an enemy that could not be fought with sandbags and hope. Fields that once yielded bountiful harvests of rice became brackish swamps, useless for agriculture. Freshwater ponds, essential for drinking and bathing, turned salty and undrinkable. The islanders watched their livelihoods, their culture, and their history being washed away. They were forced to flee, often with nothing more than the clothes on their backs, seeking refuge on the nearby and already overcrowded Saga Island. The official declaration came in 2006. Scientists from Jadavpur University in Kolkata confirmed what the islanders had known for years. Lohachara was gone. It had slipped completely beneath the waves at high tide, only to reappear as a temporary muddy sandbar when the waters receded. It was no longer a habitable place. The government records were updated, and an entire island was wiped from the map. This was not a clerical matter, it was a geographical fact. An entire community was displaced, their identity tied to a place that no longer existed. They became strangers in a new land, carrying with them the memory of a home now resting in a water. This event marked a turning point in the history of Lohacara. For the first time, many of the inhabited islands confirmed to have disappeared due to presence. It transformed the abstract threat of global warming into a tangible, devastating reality. The loss of Lohacara was not just a local tragedy, it was a global event. It demonstrated that the consequences of a warming planet were not a distant future problem. They were happening right then, displacing thousands of people and erasing a unique part of our world's human and geographical tapestry forever. The silence where Lohacara once stood is a powerful testament to this new and frightening reality. The legacy of Lohacara lives on in the lives of its displaced people. Many of them resettled on Sagar Island, itself under threat from the same rising sea. Here they live in makeshift camps and settlements, often facing poverty and discrimination. They carry the title of refugees, but they have not crossed any international border. They are refugees in their own country, displaced by a force that no government can control. Their stories are filled with a deep sense of nostalgia and loss. They speak of a time when their land was fertile, when their children could play freely, and when the sea was a friend. Now, they look out at that same sea with a mixture of fear and sorrow. The scientific evidence is undeniable. Satellite imagery from the 1970s clearly shows Lohacara as a distinct landmass. Over the decades, subsequent images document its slow erosion, its shrinking coastline, and its eventual submersion. Researchers studying the Sundarbans have recorded an alarming rate of sea level rise in the Bay of Bengal, significantly higher than the global average. This is compounded by local factors such as land subsidence, the gradual sinking of the delta itself. This combination of a rising sea and sinking land created a perfect storm, and Lohacara was its first major victim in the region. The disappearance also highlights the extreme vulnerability of delta regions around the world. These are some of the most densely populated areas on Earth, from the Mekong in Vietnam to the Nile in Egypt and the Mississippi in the United States. They are fertile, dynamic landscapes that have supported civilizations for millennia. Yet, like the Sundarbans, they are incredibly low-lying and susceptible to the slightest changes in sea level. The fate of Lohacara is a microcosm of what could happen on a much grander scale. It serves as a field study, a real-world experiment demonstrating the devastating potential of climate change on coastal populations everywhere. The historical context is also crucial. For centuries, the Sundarbans Delta has been a dynamic environment, with islands forming and eroding naturally. However, human activity has dramatically altered this balance. The construction of dams upstream has reduced the flow of fresh sediment that once replenished the islands, essentially starving them of the material needed to rebuild and stay above the rising water. In this sense, the loss of Lohacara is not entirely a natural disaster. It is a disaster accelerated by human intervention, a tragic consequence of our attempts to control nature without fully understanding the repercussions. The story of Lohacara is more than just a sad tale of a lost island. It is a clear and urgent warning. It tells us that the Earth is changing in fundamental ways, and these changes have profound human consequences. The same forces that submerged Lohacara are at work across the globe. From the small island nations of the Pacific, like Tuvalu and Kiribati, to the bustling coastal megacities of Miami, Shanghai, and Lagos, millions of people live on land that is at risk of being claimed by the sea. The disappearance of one small Indian island is a harbinger of a much larger global crisis. We must not see this as an isolated incident. Nearby, the neighboring island of Goramara is also shrinking rapidly, having lost more than half its area in recent decades. Its remaining inhabitants live with the constant fear that they will be next. The children of Goramara are growing up in a world that is literally washing away beneath their feet. This is the front line of climate change, where the battle for survival is not a future projection, but a daily reality. The plight of these communities is a direct message to the rest of the world. The time for debate is over. The time for action is now. The solution requires a global effort. We must drastically reduce the greenhouse gas emissions that are warming our planet and causing our oceans to rise. This means transitioning to cleaner sources of energy, protecting our forests, and adopting more sustainable ways of living. It also means we must help those communities that are already facing the unavoidable impacts. We have a moral responsibility to support the climate refugees of today and to invest in the infrastructure and strategies that can protect the vulnerable populations of tomorrow. Ignoring their fate is to ignore our own, for the rising tide makes no distinction between nations. Lohachara Island may be gone, but its story must never be forgotten. It stands as a silent monument to our planet's fragility and our own short-sightedness. It is a ghost on the water, a memory that sends a ripple of warning across the globe. We must listen to its story. We must see the empty space on the map and understand what it represents. If we fail to heed this warning, if we continue on our current path, then Lohachara will not be the last island to vanish. It will simply be the first of many, and the silent waves that cover it today will one day crash upon other shores.